Hello, hello, hello.
We can hear you, sir. Your
Okay.
audio is okay.
Is that Raven?
Yes, sir.
Hi, Raven.
Good afternoon po.
Good afternoon. So I'm in, huh?
Yes po.
I don't have to do anything else.
Wala na po, sir.
So I'm unmuted and I can see the video.
Okay po.
But I came too early. I'm not supposed to be in the video.
It's okay
I'm
po.
not a speaker. It's okay.
Yes po.
Oh,
You
I'll
can
just be.
you can turn off your video and I can mute po.
So I will turn off the video.
But it's okay if you don't.
I see. All I want to see is the speaker or the speakers. Yeah.
He's not yet here, but
Uh,
we're still waiting for him.
I see. And Mr. Nang, Jeffrey Nang, is not yet here.
Yes, sir.
Uh, Someone's waving at me.
Mr. Pete Arce, our executive director. I will just.
I know Pete. He was my student.
Mhm.
Hi, Pete.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. How
Yes,
are you,
Pete.
sir?
I'm
How are
fine,
you,
thank
sir?
you. Are you an
Uh,
officer of Apcu?
Utusan, sir. Executive Director. I'm the
Uh,
Executive Director. But I know that,
Congratulations, Executive
but
Director ka pala.
yes, but I know that in 1974-75, you were the main
Co-founder.
guy who spearhead Apco in Lasal.
Oh, yeah, oo.
And I think Jeffrey knows that.
I see. And Jeffrey, what is his position?
He's the incumbent president right now of Apcu.
I see. I thought it
Uh,
was Lambino. No.
Raul Lambino is the chairman.
Chairman.
Yes. Our chairman emeritus is
President
ex-president
Makapag
GMA.
GMA. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
How are you, sir?
I'm fine, thank you. Just cooperating with the quarantine requirements.
Yes, sir. You ingat lang ho.
Ingat. Oh.
Uh,
So are you retired now?
no, I have my own small business executive as a small company. It's
Uh,
illegal. It's an insurance company, and also
Insurance. Yeah.
I'm also the executive director of this organization, Apcu.
Okay. Yeah. So it's running very well. It was founded many years ago. I mean, the revival of Apcu.
Yes, sir. 1974 yon, May 9, 1974.
Right.
Tapos si Rene Velasco, kilala niyo si Rene Velasco.
Oh, is he still around?
Rene just died recently because of COVID-19.
Oh my
April
goodness.
4.
I'm
He
so
was
sorry to hear
he
that.
was the late president then
Uh,
of Apcu when it revived.
uh-huh.
And after that, Jeffrey Nang
Yeah. Send my regards
assume,
to Jeffrey. He's a good friend of mine.
he will be here. He will
Uh,
be the moderator.
uh, how do I remove the big square with a different what do you call this?
Sir,
Yeah,
I'll ask Raven to do it. You
there's
have
a
to ask
square.
Raven. He's the
Raven. Yeah, yes. We have
uh,
met through telephone.
Mm.
Raven.
Raven.
Yes, sir. What
How
do
do
you
I
mean?
remove? There's a big square, white square with a lot of uh, graphs about volume and audio here, blocking the view of the video. How do I remove that? I'm not techie, you know, sorry.
Can you touch your main screen?
Touch the main screen. You
Yes
mean
po.
you mean this one? Wait, let me see. It doesn't disappear.
Are you using a phone or a laptop po?
A laptop.
Mm. I am not sure, sir, but I think it will be
Meron dito
automatically removed.
meron nakasulat ditong box na maliit, rectangle, advanced. Shall I click advanced? I'll tell you what the square box includes. No, it says settings, speaker, test speaker, microphone, test microphone, and then at the bottom a small rectangle which says advanced.
I haven't encountered that yet, sir. I think it will be automatically removed later if when I share the screen.
And then I can exit Firefox. Hindi, no? That's
No,
my
sir.
Sige, I'll just wait, Iha, no?
Hello.
Hi, Pete. Good afternoon, Tony.
Kamusta po? Kami kalaw.
Attorney. Guard.
Hello. Hello. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Sino ito? Hello, sino ito? Hello.
Attorney Kamin for Tama o. Tama din magpapita.
Sila eh.
At sa okay man.
Good afternoon po. Oh. Present.
Hi.
Oh, present sir. Present.
Baliktad mo gamin. Baliktad kayo.
Anong baliktad?
At ano yun? Nakakasdidan yun. Suda amin.
Hello.
Good afternoon, Kong baby.
Oo. Good afternoon.
Mukhang nasa Boracay ka.
Ha?
Boracay yung background.
Kita nila yung ano mo.
Oo, ano lang. Picture lang.
General.
Good afternoon, Vice. Noy.
Hi, kumusta?
Yeah, good.
Looking good, ah.
Yeah. Looking good.
Panay COVID look tayo nun eh.
Oo. Pero medyo at least maluwag-luwag na.
Ah.
Paano
Afternoon,
tayo?
Jeff.
Ang dami natin, 100.
100 plus yung nag-register.
Kaya nga 100 plus, makikita ba tayo lahat nun?
Oo. Up to 500
Iikot.
yung Kong baby, up to 500 yung natin. Expected.
Talaga?
Oo.
Oh. Galing nga.
Dinagdagan natin yung capacity ng magkapag-participate.
Okay.
Normally 100 lang. In excess of that, up to 500 ang nila minimum.
Nasaan ka? Ba't di kita nakikita?
Andiyan, pag nagsalita, yan, lalabas.
Pedro. Ito. Asan ba yung salamin ko?
Good afternoon po sa inyo.
No.
Naka-off mo yung camera natin. Pero yung audio na. Parang audio pa. Dito pa. Saan dito? Ha? Saan audio? Hindi, nasaan audio? Parang nagsasalita pa. Ano yung salita? Wala pa. Sabihin mo yung sabihin mo kay tawag dito. Ano? Diyan pa lang. Sabihin mo kaya yung mangga po. Mangga sir. Hindi na minimum. Wala pa. Wala pa. Test mo nga dito. Ay, meron. Ay, meron. Kasalanan. Wala pa sila eh. Hindi pa sila, hindi ka nakausap. Muted everyone.
Good afternoon, everyone, to today's Apcu forum. For here is Chairman Raul. Is he here already?
He's not yet here, sir.
Okay. Anyone from the Chinese embassy? No. Okay. We'd like to acknowledge the presence of Mr. Ting Hong, our counterpart from the Beijing People's Association for Friendship with Foreign Countries. 对外优协. Our guest speaker is already here, no? General Vic Corpus.
Hi.
Okay. Hi, General Vic. So we will just wait for our chairman to log in so that we can start. I see Noy, no? Our vice chairman also, who will introduce
Mr. President.
The guest speaker.
Hello. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Amado So from Davao City.
Hi,
Hello.
how are you?
Hello.
Yeah, very good. Oh,
Yeah.
Kapsiatsu, okay. Yeah. Thank you for the invitation. Thank you for initiating this meeting. Thank you.
Raven, can you check on our chairman, Raul Lambino, if he's logging in already?
He's logging in na po.
Okay.
Hi, everyone. Hi, Jeff.
Hi, Chairman Raul.
Hi.
Okay.
Chairman, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Okay, we can start. We will start with an invocation, no? Prepared by our past president, Gabi Lopez.
Yeah.
He sent this because he will be late, so I will just do this for him.
Okay.
Lord of the universe,
Yes.
bless our Apcu forum this afternoon.
Yes.
May we always pursue peace and harmony in our programs.
Yes.
May we find cooperative solutions to overcome COVID-19 and other challenges to our societies today. Bless our speaker, General Vic Corpus, to enlighten us. Thank you for our forum. Amen.
Amen.
And now, I would like to ask Cabinet Secretary, the CEO and Administrator of the Cagayan Export Zone Authority, and Apcu Chairman Raul Lambino to give the welcoming remarks.
Okay.
Thank you, President Jeff, and welcome everyone. This is our second Zoom meeting. Actually, this is our third Zoom meeting. The first one was when we affirmed and confirmed the appointment of President Jeff as our new Apcu president. And the first Zoom meeting that we had was with our good friend and Manila ambassador to Beijing, Chito Santo Romana. And this is our third Zoom meeting brought about by this pandemic. We are forced to make use of this available technology, and we are thankful to God that we can still continue communicating despite the limitations that we are now facing. And we are also thankful to General Victor Corpus for becoming our speaker today. This is the second time that he's going to speak in Apcu Forum. And the topic that we have chosen for him to give us his enlightening view on the existing relations between the Philippines and China, the Philippines and the United States, and the United States and China, vis-a-vis the hot issue pertaining to the West Philippine Sea, or sometimes it's called the South China Sea by the Chinese government. And we have seen so many remarks, and we've read so many opinions coming from different political analysts and security experts pertaining to the importance, the significance, and the strategic importance of the West Philippine Sea to international maritime commerce and also for security purposes in this part of the Asia Pacific region. I am no expert on security matters. I've been a student of political science and law, including international law. And I always treasure those lessons that I've learned from experts. No? The opinions that they have forwarded, they have always been the part of my being a public officials and with my position as the administrator and CEO of the Cagayan Economic Zone Authority, and my being the presidential advisor for Northern Luzon, and incidentally, my being chairman of the Association for Philippines-China Understanding. Those lessons that I've learned in the past are very significant and very important to me, and they are guiding me a lot in the making my judgment or giving my opinion. Very recently, I got directive from no less than our president and also from the Armed Forces of the Philippines pertaining to the Puga Island, which is a very important group of islands in the West Philippine Sea. The Fuga group of islands is a part of the province of Cagayan, more particularly the municipality of Pari, but it is also part of the Special Economic Zone, which is covered by the Cagayan Economic Zone Authority. There were some falsehoods circulating in the social media about what is happening in Fuga. This was brought about possibly of understanding that CESA has entered into with the Chinese company Fengxing Enterprise based in Xiamen, which was a memorandum of understanding signed in Beijing more than a year and a half ago. And after that, we haven't heard anything from this Chinese company. And there were a lot of speculations, there were a lot of false news, there were a lot of these opinions being forwarded by critics of the Duterte administration and those groups that are really rabid anti-China. And I can guarantee you that we are not going to allow any investment happening in the Fuga group of islands without the clearance coming from our security agencies, more particularly the Armed Forces of the Philippines, the National Security Council, and of course the Philippine Navy. I'm happy to report to you now that we're about to enter into an agreement with the private owners of the Fuga Group of Islands, because the Fuga Group of Islands is a privately owned property. We have talked to them, and we are hopeful that we will be able to get the deed of donation coming from them in favor of the Philippine Navy. We have already received their commitment pursuant to the directive of the President. And we are not going to stop until we are able to ensure that the Philippine Navy will have its presence in the Fuga group of islands to ensure the sovereign authority of the Philippine government with the Armed Forces of the Philippines, more particularly the Philippine Navy and the Philippine Coast Guard, being our two security forces that will be in charge in our maritime security. And our guest speaker today, I do believe that is one of the most authoritative personality, being a former senior military official himself, being a former Philippine Army chief, and having been into this business throughout his career. He can enlighten us further about our security relations with the United States, with our existing Mutual Defense Treaty and the Associated Visiting Forces Agreement, as well as also our relationship with China. Combining these two situations, there's no other person that I know of. Considered him to be a very close friend and mentor. He served as my consultant in the Cagayan Economic Zone Authority, and I'm very, very happy that's going to enlighten us. So again, I welcome everyone to this forum. I'm going to look forward of listening to the views of the others participating in this forum. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Chairman Raul. Before we go on, I'd like to acknowledge presence of our ambassador to Beijing, Chito Santa Romana, who was our last guest speaker. We'd like to inform everyone that we'll be accepting questions, but you have to type it through the chat window here. Then the moderator, that's me, will ask your questions to our guest speaker, General Vic Corpus, after his presentation. And now can we ask Vice Chairman Sixto Benedicto to introduce our esteemed guest speaker for this afternoon?
Yes, thank you, President Jeff. Good afternoon, everybody, fellow Apcu members and guests. Our speaker for today is from San Pablo, Laguna, since October 4, 1944. He finished primary and secondary school at De La Salle College, Manila, where he was hailed as a bronze medalist. As part of his civilian schooling, he has a master in public administration from Harvard University in USA. On his military schooling, he went to Philippine Military Academy in Baguio City, SCOC, PASC, Fort Bonifacio, where he ranked as 1st Airborne SF. There are a lot of acronyms here that I don't understand. But later on, maybe our guest speaker would be able to tell us. And there is a Fort Magsaysay, PCOBC, Camp Panopio, QC, where he ranked as 3rd. Pre-command course for battalion commanders, where he ranked as 3rd, and command and general staff course, where he ranked as 3rd. Among his significant assignments include Deputy Chief of Operations Center of Department of National Defense, Chief Intelligence Service Armed Forces of the Philippines, Executive Director of PNSBR, Commanding General of Civil Relations Service Armed Forces of the Philippines, member of the Board of Directors of the Philippine National Oil Company, Alternative Fuels Corporation, and Veterans Affairs Office, Washington, D.C.'s head. He also served as an instructor, a commanding officer, and a chief of Special Studies Division as officer in charge of Battle Staff Office and such. Today's speaker is also an awardee of various notable awards, such as the Distinguished Service Star Award, Aurora Aragon Quezon Peace Award, Bronze Cross Medal, Gawad sa Kaunlaran, Military Civic Action Medal, Visayas Anti-Dis Campaign Medal and Ribbon, Certificate of Academic Excellence, Dean of Academics Award and Physical Fitness Award. Our guest speaker is also an author. He is the author of the book Silent War and US DMAC Points Unrestricted Warfare in the 21st Century and the National Peace and Development Plan. He co-authored AFP Campaign Plan, Lambat Bitag, and authored the paper Green Panay, A New Approach to Reforestation. Additionally, he is a member of prestigious organizations such as the Harvard Club of the Philippines, De La Salle Alumni Association, Philippine Military Academy Alumni Association, and the Association of General Flag Officers. Ladies and gentlemen, our guest speaker for today, Apcu's very own Second Vice Chairman, retired Brigadier General Victor N. Corpus. Let's give him a round of applause. General, baka naka-mute ka, General.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon, General.
Good afternoon.
Can we have the presentation? Okay. The title of the presentation is U.S.-China Rivalry in the South China Sea, or the Cold War between U.S. and China in the South China Sea. Okay. Next. To understand what is happening now in the Cold War raging in the South China Sea, we should go back a little in history. When the Soviet Union collapsed and the US became the sole superpower, the US adopted a national defense strategy, and it can be capsulized on the Wolfowitz Doctrine, which states our first objective is to prevent the re-emergence of a new rival, either on the territory of the former Soviet Union or elsewhere, that poses a threat on the order of that posed formerly by the Soviet Union. This is a dominant consideration underlying the new regional defense strategy and requires that we endeavor to prevent any hostile power from dominating a region whose resources would, under consolidated control, be sufficient to generate global power. Probably this was read.
Dito ka lang. Parang hindi ako sigaw na sigaw. Nawawala eh.
Okay na ba?
We hear you, General Corpus. Please go ahead.
Ano mo nga rin dito sa...
Can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
We can hear you. We can hear you.
Nag-react dito si Deng Xiaoping. On the same year, next slide.
So, humihingi ng... well...
Ito yung...
Pwede ba mag-unmute yung Carlos na yun, please?
Oh, ako yung unmute.
Okay. Can we continue?
Please unmute. Thank you.
Okay. Can we go back to the slide? Okay. Ito yung reaction ni yung leader nung panahong yon. This was the reaction to that Wolfowitz doctrine. Observe calmly, secure our position, cope with affairs calmly, hide our capabilities and bide our time, be good at maintaining a low profile, and never claim leadership. This was the same year that the Wolfowitz doctrine was came out. At that time, China felt alluded to dun sa Wolfowitz doctrine that the United States will not allow any foreign power to attain parity or masurpas ang capabilities ng United States. So at that time, China was afraid that the US will attack them prematurely because at that time, the balance of forces was too lopsided in favor of the United States. That if there will be war at that time, China is sure to be to meet with disaster. So makikita natin dito dalawang beses inulit yung word na calmly. And I believe that this was what saved China from disaster during that time. Because, next slide. Yeah. Because there were several instances where the US tried to provoke China into war. And the most serious provocation was in 1999 when the US bombed the Chinese embassy in Belgrade with the casualties in the Chinese side, which is a clear act of war. But because of the admonition of Deng Xiaoping to observe calmly and to act calmly, they were able to prevent war with the United States, which at that time will most surely cause the total defeat of China. Notice that in the last in 2005, the Talisman Saber. This was the naval exercises conducted by the United States and Australian navies, rehearsing the naval blockade of the Malacca Strait. I'll discuss this a little bit more in detail later. This was the main reason why China built those 7 islands, artificial islands in the West Philippine Sea, or what they call the South China Sea, in order to prevent the US blockade of the Malacca Strait. Next. Okay. China kept a low profile despite U.S. provocation for war, as China was not yet ready with its assassin's mace weapons to counter any U.S. military threats. When Xi Jinping took over the reins of leadership in China, the secret weapons were nearly in place, but there were certain geographical dilemma that President Xi had to tackle. Next. Okay. One of them is the military bases that U.S. Built around China to encircle not only China but also the USSR, the Russia and Iran. Next. In the South China Sea area, there are several security concerns that forced China to build artificial islands in those in that region. The first is what we mentioned earlier, the Talisman Saber, a biennial naval exercise by U.S. and Australian navies since 2005 up to now that is designed to block the Malacca Strait to choke China in case of a major war. A naval blockade by the U.S. Navy of the Malacca Strait and other straits in the area can stop the flow of oil to China coming from the Middle East and Africa, as well as foreign trade to Europe, the Persian Gulf, and Africa. Worth some $5 trillion annually, most of which belong to China. If that straits or choke points that include the Sunda Strait, the Lombok Strait, the Makassar Strait, if those straits or choke points are blocked, it can force the entire Chinese economy to grind to a halt. So that's one reason for China building those 7 islands. The second reason is the Manila Trench this is off Subic that passes near Scarborough Shoal that leads right up to the middle of the east coast of China, where that is the only deep portion in the South China Sea where nuclear submarines can approach the eastern coast of China and launch a first nuclear strike. And because of the proximity of a possible first nuclear strike, China will not have any time to react, and the whole East Coast can be attacked by nuclear weapons within minutes. It will destroy the entire East Coast of China, where 1.4 billion people are concentrated, including their industrial capacity. The third concern is China's Cuba. Last August 2, 2019, can we go back to these slides? Next. In August of last year, the U.S. withdrew from the INF Treaty, the Intermediate Range Nuclear Forces Treaty with Russia. And And 2 days after that announcement, the U.S. Secretary of Defense announced that they plan to emplace INF nuclear missiles in this region, to include Japan, South Korea, the Philippines, and Australia. Meron sasabatay.
Can we see the slide on China's Cuba? Because we haven't seen this slide on China's Cuba. We have.
Go back. Yeah, this one. China's Cuba is the U.S. plan to emplace their INF nuclear missiles in Japan, South Korea, the Philippines, and Australia. So let's take the Philippines, for instance. If we are going to allow the United States to place their INF nuclear missiles in Fort Magsaysay, which is one of the EDCA bases, or in Basa Air Base, which is another EDCA base, you will notice from the map that it is near the center of the east coast of China, where most of the 1.4 billion people of China are concentrated. So from Basa Air Base and from Fort Magsaysay in Nueva Ecija and Basa Air Base in Pampanga, from there, the INF missiles have a range of up to 5,500 kilometers. So it can cover almost the entire east coast of China from the centrally located EDCA bases, US EDCA bases in the Philippines. So if our leaders will allow this plan of the United States to emplace their missiles, say in Fort Magsaysay or in Basa Air Base, China will consider that as a first strike in the strategic level. And operationally, they will take the initiative to attack first, because they will not allow those US nuclear missiles to be deployed and become operational. Before they become operational, I'm sure that China will attack first. And that will not be to the national interest of the Filipino people. So we should be very careful. Maybe during the Duterte administration, there'll be no danger for that, because we know the position of our president. But what is worrying is that in the next president, if the next president will be a puppet of a superpower, that will be a big problem for the Philippines. Okay, next. This is the Manila Trench, where it passes near Scarborough Shoal. This is the only deep portion in the whole of China Sea, where nuclear submarines can approach the east coast of China and launch a first nuclear strike, where China will have no time to react, and the entire east coast of China will be put in danger, or in danger of annihilation. It will take only a few hours or perhaps minutes for the entire nation and civilization of China will be driven to extinction. So this is the reason why China is now present in Scarborough Shoal. And whatever we do, or even the United States do, because it's a matter of survival for China, they will not live in that area. Okay. Next. These are the possible some type of submarines that can be used to launch a first strike on China's east coast. The Ohio class submarines that carries each submarines carry. Each of the submarine carry 154 Tomahawk cruise missiles, each with a range of 2,500 kilometers and carrying a 200 kiloton warhead, more than 10 times stronger than that used in Hiroshima. Next. Next. Next slide, please. So now, because of the 7 islands that were constructed by China in the South China Sea, or what we call the West Philippine Sea, those 7 artificial islands built by China were meant to ensure against a submarine first strike and a naval blockade of the Malacca Strait. The islands can now accommodate more DF-17s, 21s, 26, and anti-submarine aircraft, J-20s, and other stealth aircrafts, air defense systems, then they can accommodate more than all the US aircraft carriers combined that can prevent a US blockade or first strike. Okay. Next. Next. So if there will be a military confrontation between the United States and China, the U.S. Sea power will be confronted by China's combined land and sea power. Okay. Here's another map showing the position of the Philippines, especially northern Luzon, relative to the east coast of China. If future leaders of the Philippines will allow the United States to emplace their INF nuclear missiles in Fort Magsaysay, that is in central Luzon, or in Basa Air Base in Pampanga, in Pampanga. You can see that those INF missiles that have a range of up to 5,500 kilometers will cover the entire east coast of China, where majority of the Chinese 1.4 billion population are concentrated, and majority of the industries of China are concentrated on the east coast. So before those missiles will become operational, I'm pretty sure that China will not just sit by and wait for those missiles to fall on their heads. They will surely seize the initiative and strike the Philippines first. Next. This is the map of the old Silk Road. The red lines are the land routes, while the blue lines are the maritime routes. Notice that in ancient times, Manila was the easternmost hub of the maritime Silk Road. And this goes west and reaches up to Madrid of Spain. Okay. Now, this is the if we are going to really have a win-win negotiation with China and other ASEAN states, this ancient Silk Road can be extended eastward. Next slide. Next slide. By reviving the Manila-Acapulco galleon trade route that goes all the way to eastward, going to Seville of Spain. So the revival of the Manila-Acapulco galleon trade route can be a win-win solution to the territorial disputes in the South China Sea or the West Philippine Sea. By extending the ancient Silk Road to cover the Manila-Acapulco galleon trade route or revival of that route, it will be a win for the Philippines, as it will be at the epicenter of a planetary scale economic development of the 21st century. Win for China, as BRI will cover 6 continents instead of 3, to include North and South America and Oceania. It's a win. It's also a win for ASEAN, as ASEAN will be linked by trade routes and economic corridors to 6 continents instead of Asia, that is Asia, Europe, Africa, North and South America, and Oceania. Next. Next. What will follow next is the assassin's mace, weapons of China. The reason why they want to bide their time because they were developing their counter to U.S. Military superiority. One of them is the DF-21D, the first carrier killer of China. Next. The DF-26, hypersonic anti-ship ballistic missile that can target aircraft carriers up to Guam and beyond. It can carry both conventional as well as nuclear warheads. Next. The DF-17. This is the hypersonic anti-ship ballistic missile. By the way, the hypersonic missiles, only Russia and China have this kind of missiles at the moment. US is still trying to catch up. Next. Another hypersonic missile of China is the DF-100 that is designed to attack the bases encircling China at the moment. Another is the HN-2000 long-range stealth anti-ship cruise missile or land attack cruise missile with a range of 4,000 kilometers, a circular error probable of 1 to 3 meters, supersonic terminal phase. This is also for attacking the US, especially air bases that are surrounding China right now. Next. Next. The DF-41 ICBM, reputed to have the longest range ICBM in the world, with 10 independently targeted nuclear warheads. They can hit any target in the United States. China's nuclear submarines. Next. China's strategic bombers. Well, this one is the anti-satellite weapons of China. Russia recently announced the deployment of its S-500, reputedly the most advanced air defense system in the world, due to its capabilities of shooting down adversary satellites and incoming missiles. But China has achieved that capability way back in January 11, 2007, when it shut down its own satellite by a ground-based variant of the DF-21. Next. Next. Another anti-satellite weapon system using lasers. Next. 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 Quantum communication satellite. China was the first, or the only one at the moment, that have a quantum communication satellite that is immune to hacking. Next. These are the missiles that can be used by China against submarines, combined with their hydroponic underwater surveillance. Next. Railgun. They are the first to install a railgun on warships. US is still experimenting on railguns. Next. Microwave weapon that can destroy incoming missiles, tank fleets, drone swarms, etc. China's laser weapons pointed at the US spy plane. I think this was in Djibouti. Next. The DF-41 ICBMs have the longest range ballistic missiles in the world and can hit any chosen target on the planet. Next. 6 nuclear submarines being made at one go. And this is not the only submarine factory in China. It's only one. Go. Next. China has 41 underground air bases scattered along the East Coast. US air bases don't have any underground shelter like this. I think there is only one in South Korea and another one in Taiwan. China has 41. Next. Next. Go back. Yeah. More than 3 decades ago, they already have 5,000 kilometers of strategic tunnels. So maybe at this time, they have more than double or triple this the length of these strategic tunnels. The one on the right is a huge tunneling machine that can dig tunnels very rapidly. And they had several of these. Way back in 1950s, Mao made a call: dig tunnels deep, store grains everywhere, and never seek hegemony. Well, since that time in the 1950s up to now, they've kept on digging tunnels. Next. This is the hardened submarine base in Hainan that are also underground, capable of hiding up to 20 nuclear submarines from spy satellites. Next. Mackinder's heartland theory. Who rules East Europe commands the heartland. Who rules the heartland commands the world island. Who rules the world island commands the world. Well, but it is now China, Russia, and Iran that are occupying and in full control of the heartland. Next. The red is the Eurasian, uh, Europe and Asia, Eurasia, where the heartland is located somewhere in the middle. So if there will be a confrontation between China, Russia, and Iran on one side, and the US and its allies on the other, it will be a land and sea power of China, Russia, and Iran versus the sea power of US, UK, Japan, New Zealand, Australia, and Canada. Can you go back to the last slide? The limited space and carrying capacity at sea put US and its allies at a great disadvantage. Next. This is the Belt and Road Initiative. There are 6 economic corridors spanning Asia, Europe, and Africa. Right smack in the middle of what Mackinder called the geographic pivot of history. Next. Geography gives China and its main Asia allies, Russia and Iran, the edge for the following reasons. 1, US and its allies' naval power versus China's combined land and naval power. China's interior line operations versus US and allies' exterior lines. US and allies are forced to cross oceans to reach the Eurasian battlefields, exposing their long sea lanes of communication vulnerable to interdiction by submarines, anti-ship ballistic missiles, and cruise missiles, and attack from the air. Rail networks give the triumvirate the advantage of rapid maneuver. Wait. Geographic proximity equals effective range of Chinese, Russian, and Iranian missiles to target ships at sea and air bases on land, plus command and control, communication hubs, and logistics. So they have the advantage of geographic proximity. US and its allies will be forced to fight on multiple fronts, rendering them weak everywhere and vulnerable to defeat in detail. That is, concentration of superior forces and firepower to defeat the invading forces one by one, facilitated by extensive rail networks in the heartland. Home court advantage give the defenders the advantage of popular support, key to victory in many battles. And lastly, China focused its revolution in military affairs research in missiles or development. They focused on their missiles while the US focused on carriers and stealth aircraft, which became vulnerable to China's advanced missile systems. Next. The impact of the revolution in military affairs. The advent of the information age on military affairs is changing the nature and conduct of warfare. It created a revolution in military affairs as we know it. Well, I will not read them anymore. Anyone interested can go back to this. It will be posted in the website of Apcu. But just to summarize, the impact of the revolution in military affairs is really changing the nature and conduct of warfare. And the problem with the United States is that they concentrated on power projection. They concentrated on big ticket items like aircraft carriers and stealth aircraft. While China concentrated their efforts in developing advanced missiles that can destroy aircraft carriers and stealth aircrafts in their air bases. So I think that is the most important factor here. Next. Thucydides' trap is a geographical concept popularized by former dean of the Harvard Kennedy School of Government, Graham Allison. In summary, it is based on an idea from the Athenian historian Thucydides, who wrote that when a rising power threatens to displace a ruling power, alarm bells should sound, extreme danger ahead. It was the rise of Athens and the fear that this instilled in Sparta that made war inevitable. Well, that is their justification for trying to attack China while China was still weak. But it is too late for the US to fall into this trap at this time and age. China has fully readied its response, which is the assassin's maze that I outlined earlier. If ever the US drags China into this trap, China has bided its time. Now it is ready. Next. Strategic importance of Iran. Next. Well, it straddles the Persian Gulf and the Caspian Sea, two of the richest regions on Earth when it comes to oil and gas. Serves as the gateway to the Eurasian heartland, the geographic pivot of history. One of the most populous countries in the Middle East, and one with the highest literacy rate to man an intelligent army. One of the most mountainous countries in the world, preventing outside invasion using tanks, ideal for defense of the country using unconventional warfare. In the crossroads of Asia, Europe, and Africa. It also lies at the crossroads of West Asia, South Asia, and Central Asia. Iran controls the Strait of Hormuz, where 60% of NATO's oil and 90% of Japan's pass. Proximity to Arab oil and gas facilities that can be vulnerable to Iran's missiles that can put OPEC out of business and US dollars to collapse. Next. Next. This is the impact of COVID. This is the impact of COVID-19 on US GDP second quarter. Notice the dip on the right. Well, the continuing increase of coronavirus in the United States in the third quarter 2020 will sink the US GDP deeper into the abyss with no end in sight, leading into a US U-shaped recovery curve. Worse, with the continuing Cold War with China, US dollar may be adversely affected, leading to an L-shaped recovery curve, a long cold winter for the US economy. Next. From the US Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo. The United States champions a free and open Indo-Pacific. Today, we are strengthening U.S. policy in a vital, contentious part of that region, the South China Sea. We are making clear Beijing claims to offshore resources across most of South China Sea are completely unlawful, as is its campaign of bullying to control them. Next. The world is waiting for the U.S. next move, as China will never fire the first shot. That is its doctrine. Countries like the Philippines should get out of the way. It is not in the country's national interest to serve as cannon fodders by either superpower. Thank you. So,
Thank you very much,
okay.
General Victor. Those who have questions can now type your questions into the chat room. We will be reading your chats. My first question is, General Victor, U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo recently stated that the Chinese Communist Party is now a danger, to the American way of life. He had turned this into an ideological Cold War. Do you see any possible exit off ramp, for both nuclear superpowers, or do you see the situation getting worse and out of hand in the months, years, or decades to come?
I think that is a red line for China, as far as China is concerned. And if the U.S. will keep attacking the Communist Party, then it will really lead into war. That's my prognosis. Ibalik mo nga. Wala.
Okay, are there questions from the... Okay, how do you think should the Philippines treat, and behave if China should seek a solution to the Taiwan issue the next maybe 10 years?
Well, that concerns the internal affairs of China, and the Philippines cannot interfere in those kinds of issues.
Okay. We have a question from Peter, from Davao. Will a peace movement in the region have any impact to reverse U.S. aggressive moves in interfering in Asian affairs?
Come again. I did not get the question.
Will a peace movement in the ASEAN region have any impact to reverse U.S. aggressive moves in interfering in Asian affairs?
I don't think we can affect. We can do anything to affect whatever moves the United States decide on with regards to Asian affairs. They will just do what they want.
Okay. Another question from Ana Malindog. Hi, good afternoon. Do you think a change of U.S. leadership in November will pave the way for a change in the U.S. stance against China or not? Thank you.
I don't think I don't know the position of Joe Biden and his running mate Kamala Harris with regards to the dealing with China. But from previous statements by some leaders in the Democratic Party, it seems that their position is no different from Trump. Like, for instance, Schumer or other leaders in the Democratic Party. They have the same mindset with regards to dealing with China.
We have a comment from Davao, from Peter, that Joe Biden has a history of anti-China stand.
Yes, that's true.
Okay, from Ken Benedicto, how can we get out of the way when we are right smack in the middle of the conflict? Should we not allow the Fuga Island deal, as it may provoke either side gaining a strategic advantage?
Instead of militarizing the Fuga Island, I think the Fuga Island group, being part of the CESA or economic zone that the Philippines is developing up north, if the Fuga Island will be developed as a maritime hub by CESA, perhaps with the help of China, then it can serve as the gateway for expanding the maritime Silk Road to the other side of the globe, going eastward, going to Mexico, Acapulco, Mexico, and on to Seville of Spain. So instead of thinking of militarizing the area, we should think of how we can develop it as a development or maritime hub that will help the economic development of this country.
Okay. From Hubert, Filipinos seem to be overwhelmingly pro-American. Do you think this will change? Do you think Filipinos can be made aware of our own self-interest to avoid being embroiled in this conflict between the US and China?
I think that's correct. We should always, Filipinos should always think of the national interest first, rather than serving as puppets or tools of the superpowers.
A question from Reynold. With the US election coming soon, do you see any drastic or dangerous moves against China for election posturing? If yes, how will it affect the Philippines?
That is one danger now, because of the falling trends in the polls with regards to Trump. President Trump might think of creating an incident in the South China Sea in order to drum up nationalist sentiments and improve his chances of winning.
From Hubert, how entrenched is the US in the Philippine military establishment among the generals, the Defense Department, or the officer corps, and perhaps even the ordinary soldiers?
malakas ang influence ng Amerika dahil yan ang orientation namin sa military.
Jeffrey, Jeffrey.
Yes.
This is George Barcelon. I have the question, but you go ahead with the chat. I can ask my question later on. Thank you. Just acknowledge.
From Cristel Beso. Any comments regarding US being firm on conducting freedom of navigation in the South China Sea, but they are not a party to the 1982 UNCLOS?
Yan ang ano dun eh. They want to implement something, yung UNCLOS nga, na sumunod sa law. But they themselves have not signed the UNCLOS. Or they refuse to sign.
Okay.
How can you implement something that you yourself have not do not agree on?
Okay, from Cecilia Pedro, if war erupted between China and the US and we are forced to choose sides, which one would you choose and why?
My position there is we should not choose. We should refuse to choose. Because gagamitin lang tayo as a cannon fodder. Gagamitin lang tayo mga puppets. We cannot influence any of the sides. Why will you join a fight between two giants or two elephants when ang size natin parang mga langgam? When two elephants fight, it is the ants that get crushed underneath.
From Hubert, what do you think of the US spying accusations versus Huawei, etc.? Is the US also currently spying on us? If yes, how?
Siguro magbasa siya ng Snowden. Yung mga expose ni Snowden. Saka sino pa ba isa?
Okay. Another comment, no? We all don't want war. Can you or us play a role to cool down the current US initiated dispute between the US and China? Is there anything we can do to help?
I don't think so. Dahil all we can do is to get out of the way. We cannot influence the situation because you are dealing with giants and we are pygmies.
From Ken Benedicto, I think we should learn from history. When Adolf Hitler ordered Francisco Franco to join the Axis powers, General Franco opined that Spain just came from a civil war that could not assist the Axis powers. Can't the Philippines do something similar to save ourselves from this conflict?
Yeah. Just do what President Duterte is doing. I hope the other presidents that will follow him will also act that way. Refusing to be puppets of anyone.
Okay, from Hubert. Who among our political leaders do you think are astute and have a good understanding in history and geopolitics?
Right now, I cannot make any suggestion with regard to that.
The current American thinking is if you are not with me, then you are against me. Please comment.
Well, that is how they intimidate their allies. And we should refuse to be intimidated. For instance, if they will say that to us and force us to accept their intermediate range nuclear forces that they want to emplace in their EDCA bases here, well, it should be every Filipino raising their voice against that move.
Doesn't the Mutual Defense Treaty compel us to be on the US side in case of war? Are there ways for us not to be part of this US-China conflict?
We just refuse. They cannot force us. For instance, look at how did Duterte act regarding that. They cannot force a president like Duterte to act according to their will.
Okay, from Ding Generoso, I think what we have now is a world war between US and China, which will go on for as long as you have Trump at the White House. But if and when the Democrats capture the White House, that's the time the world war will evolve into a Cold War. Any comment?
Cold War. A Cold War is still a war.
From Wilson Flores, no? Can we have your opinion on the visiting forces agreement? And what do you think will be or should be President Duterte's final decision on this? To cancel it or not, and why?
Well, as I put it in the ending of this presentation, we should get out of the way between the fight between the US and China. It is not in accord with our national interest to side with anyone.
And I would presume that's also your opinion as far as the EDCA agreement is concerned.
Yes.
No?
My concern with EDCA is that they might force the next president after Duterte to emplace their US INF missiles with a range of up to 5,500 kilometers. That from those EDCA bases, they can cover the entire east coast of China.
Okay. From Stephen, sir, you espoused the idea to get out of the way. Are you saying we should give up on our shoals? I guess that means Scarborough and other maritime features.
Of course not. Merong solution dyan eh. With regards to this issue of sovereignty in the South China Sea, if we focus on the question of sovereignty, we will eventually end up in war with China. It will be a win-lose approach. Why don't we do it the Duterte way? Win-win approach. We negotiated with China, for instance. Ano resulta? With regards to the oil exploration and exploitation. We got 60-40 in our favor. So we should negotiate putting aside the question of sovereignty. Sabi nga ni Deng Xiaoping, yung kinote ko kanina. By the way, Deng Xiaoping is not an ordinary general. Deng Xiaoping was the field marshal of the People's Liberation Army when they defeated Chiang Kai-shek. More than 1 million strong army. Now, sabi nga ni Deng Xiaoping, to solve that problem, sabi niya, we don't have it's better to set it aside dahil we don't have the capability in this generation to resolve that problem of sovereignty. So, even if we discuss for 1,000 years, if we focus on sovereignty, yung side natin Pilipino, we will insist on the decision of the PCA of The Hague. Sila naman, they will insist that based on their history, they have sovereignty because they were the ones who discovered those islands and gave them names. And based on international law, kung sino yung nakadiscover at saka kung sino yung nagbigay ng pangalan, sila yung may sovereignty. Now, sino ngayon who will say now who is correct? So, even if we discuss with China with regards to this question of sovereignty, we will never resolve the problem and eventually we are going to war with them. Now, sabi ni Deng Xiaoping, why don't we set this aside for 100 years, for the next 100 years, or perhaps 1,000 years? And then let us discuss on how we both can benefit from the area. Like what Duterte did when we negotiated, we won 60% in our favor, 60-40 sharing for whatever is resources are found in that area. That's the win-win approach. But if we insist on discussing sovereignty, eventually we'll go to war because China will never abandon those their own claims. When we won the PCA decision, the US sent 2 aircraft carriers to enforce the decision of the Permanent Court of Arbitration. But China told them that if you touch those islands, we are going to war. And if we want nuclear, we are prepared to go nuclear. And for the first time in history, the US Navy retreated. And that's a fact. So China will never, because as I explained in my presentation, for China, the South China Sea involves their very own survival. Because of the planned blockade, naval blockade, that the US had been planning there since 2005. They've been rehearsing how to blockade the Malacca Strait every 2 years, up to now. And Japan and even South Korea, no, Japan and New Zealand joined the recent exercises involving rehearsal of blockading the South China, the Malacca Strait. And then there is also the possibility of a first nuclear strike using the Manila Trench. And then there is also the possibility that the US will deploy missiles in their bases in Japan, South Korea, and the Philippines. So those are the dangers that we should be very careful of.
Okay. Well, Crystal Beso asked you to comment on what others are saying, that President Duterte has a defeatist mindset when it comes to the South China Sea issue. I think General Victor has just addressed that. From regional view, the majority of Filipino sentiment is pro-US. The anti-China sentiment is exacerbated by the Spratly Islands issue. What can we, as Filipino citizens, do to negate a continuing anti-China public sentiment?
Well, kailangan nga yan yung we negotiate with China with a win-win strategic approach. If our approach is a win-lose, that we win everything and China will lose everything, then I'm pretty sure that we will get nothing. Nothing except war. And is war with China to our best national interest?
Okay. From Lourdes Malyari, if the next Philippine president agrees in letting in China to put bases here in the Philippines, does the AFP chief has the right or can advise at the same time that this decision will be detrimental to the country, knowing that the president is the commander-in-chief? Thank you.
I didn't get the last.
Yeah. If the next president of the Philippines allows China to put up bases here in the Philippines, does the AFP chief of staff have the right to advise and tell the president that this is detrimental to the interests of the Philippines?
That will never happen. That's pure fantasy.
Okay. From Hubert Chua, do you think that Thais will agree to make a crack canal to bypass the Straits of Malacca? Any other way to bypass the possible blockade of the Straits of Malacca by the US?
They have already bypassed it by via the China-Pakistan economic corridor. They've already through the Karakoram highway, and they are now, I think, building railways going to Gwadar in Pakistan. So the Krak Canal will be a redundancy.
Okay. From Ken Benedicto, it is proven from your presentation that we are of strategic importance, being in the first island chain. We are like a dagger aimed at China's heartland. What should Apcu do in creating harmony between China and the Philippines and reverse the growing anti-China sentiment among Filipinos?
I think the best approach there is to negotiate with China with a win-win approach. And in negotiations, there is such a thing as enlarging the pie. Hindi kailangan na pag-awayin natin yung mga isda dyan at sa mga langis. When there is a bigger, when we can create a bigger pie. As I said, as I mentioned as part of this presentation, if we can expand or we can serve as the epicenter of an expanded Belt and Road Initiative. Right now, the Belt and Road Initiative covers only Asia, Europe, and Africa. If we revive the Manila-Acapulco galleon trade route all the way to Seville of Spain. Then, and from Mexico, the Belt and Road can be expanded to North and South America. That is, if North America will eventually participate. But if North America or the United States will refuse, then it will be only 5 continents.
Okay. From Pedro Tan, what happened to President Duterte's calling for termination of the VFA with the US?
I'm not familiar with the current status.
Okay. From Austin Ong, good afternoon, General. Thank you for sharing your insights and decades of service to the country. Can you share some of your personal experiences dealing with the US and China in your decades of military service?
Well, I stayed in the United States for several years as Veterans Affairs officer in the embassy, in our embassy there, as well as more than a year in the Kennedy School of Government in Harvard. So I developed a lot of friends there, very good friends. With regards to China, I only had some visit there for tourist visit, and then, so that's my personal experience.
Okay. From Hubert Chua, Vietnam, Korea, and Japan are US allies surrounding China. What do you think their roles be? Their roles will be in this conflict, no? Will they openly also go to war with China?
We cannot say for sure what each country will do. But I guess each country will be fighting for their own national interest. Whatever they perceive to be their national interest, that is what they will play as their role in whatever conflict happens between the United States and China.
From Herman Laurel, General Vic, have you read the NST survey on Filipino perceptions of China in the COVID-19 period? Dr. Elmer Soriano of the PUP, Dean of Political Science and Public Administration, in his joint survey from July 1 to July 27, found that 60% of Filipinos see China's positive assistance to the Philippines in the COVID-19 fight, while only 34% see US assisting. The Filipino perception is changing. Many are now realizing the big hoax that the arbitration award was. What is your reaction to this? Thank you.
Yeah. That is also my perception. The way China addressed the problem of COVID compared to the action taken by President Trump are worlds apart. So right now, I think 2 days ago, I saw a disco concert being held in Wuhan. While in the US, they're still deciding whether to open the schools or not because of the rising trend in COVID cases. And as you can see, the casualties between the US COVID death and that of China. In China, the cases had practically been stopped, while the cases, COVID cases in the United States continue to rise. That's why in the second quarter of this year, because of the COVID cases rising in the United States, the GDP US GDP went down by 32.9%, while in China, for the second quarter, their growth rate is now recovering. I think 3% plus, while that of the United States is negative 32.9%, which is the biggest drop in GDP since the Great Depression. And with the continuing cases being encountered in the United States, this will the GDP for the third quarter will drop even further. So that's the big difference between how the United States and China cope with the COVID problem.
Okay, thank you. Before I go on, I'd like to remind everyone that we are not entertaining questions directly. No? We request everyone to ask your question through the chat room. Okay? We are open to the public, and because of the highly sensitive issue about the South China Sea, we request everyone to please address your questions through the chat room, and I will try my best to read it for you. From Atun Kao, hi General Vic. What happened to the joint exploration bill with China? Why hasn't it progressed yet?
I'm not aware with the progress of that joint agreement. I'm sorry, I'm not knowledgeable with regards to that.
It's okay, General. Yeah. From Hubert Chua, will the U.S. use Taiwan's independence question to provoke a war with China?
Possibly, because China is very sensitive with regards to the issue of Taiwan. That's one of the red lines that are being violated by the United States. And it has a big possibility of triggering a war if not handled properly. Because China will not allow any violation of its sovereignty, like what the Western powers did to China when during the starting in the Opium War, and thereafter, China will not allow that thing to happen again.
From George Chang, I think that the mainland Chinese tourists or investors should be respectful of our laws and not be arrogant because they have the money. That will help Filipinos have a positive attitude towards China. Can you comment on this?
Yeah, that's true. And that is one of the issues that have to be discussed between China and the Philippines when they sit down and negotiate. Although it's not only China that's being arrogant, sometimes Filipinos are doing the same thing.
From Wilson Flores, will you publish your thoughts on these issues into a book or even a pamphlet, perhaps by Apcu, so we can help enlighten the public on these issues?
With regards to the issues, yes, I'm writing on these issues once in a while in the Manila Times under the column Harvard Veritas.
From Ana Malindog, what's your comment on former Supreme Court Associate Justice Carpio's statement that says, elect leaders who will stand up to China? What's your reaction po?
If you want war, then you follow Carpio's advice. Because yung approach ni former Chief Justice Carpio is a win-lose approach. And if we adopt that kind of approach, eventually we will go to war with China. Is that in accord with our national interest?
Okay. Any other question? Okay, I have to read this from Mr. Ting Hong from Beijing, our counterpart, no, from the Association of Friendship to Foreign Countries. Thank you, General Victor, for a most informative and insightful presentation and question and answer session. Personally, I agree that we can all benefit from win-win negotiation. War can only benefit those warmongers. For all the peaceful, loving people to unite against wars, we can help facilitate more exchange programs so that peoples of our two nations can better understand each other, particularly youth exchange programs. When young people understand each other and make friends, they will help forge cooperative ties. Also, when people understand each other better, they will better follow the rules and laws in their host countries. We welcome any proposals for any exchange programs. Thank you. Definitely, Mr. Ding, we will try to work out more of these exchange programs for our young students and millennials, both Chinese to the Philippines and Filipinos who will be going to China. This is what Apcu is all about, promoting people-to-people relations, especially between the Chinese people and the Filipino people. From Regional View, we will be sharing the slides of General Victor Corpus right after this session. Okay. Seeing that there are no more questions, we have already asked enough questions of General Vic the past 2 full hours. We are standing now at a crossroad in world history. Unfortunately, both the US and the China in General Vic's terms, might have fallen already deeply into the Thucydides trap. For the past 30 years, the United States has been the sole and dominant power since the collapse of the Soviet Union. But now, you have China emerging out of nowhere to become a peer competitor of the US. And its defense buildup, military and defense arms have now been of sufficient strength, and it's gaining more strength in the next 10 years. So the Philippines, having been a firm ally of the US for the past 70 years, would now have to make painful decisions. We are most fortunate that Apcu Vice Chairman, General Victor Corpus, is a true and tested patriot and soldier whose love of country is proven and unchallenged in his entire life. He has sacrificed so much. He has sacrificed his life. He has put himself at risk since he was a young soldier who defected from the PMA, from the Philippine Armed Forces, to the Communist Party, and since EDSA Revolution, joined the Philippine Armed Forces and has retired honorably as General of the Republic. So it is incumbent upon all of us, not only Apcu members and officers, but also all our guests for today, to really think seriously what the Philippines should do in the event of worsening relations between the United States and China, which could possibly even result in a hot war in the South China Sea. And if we are to listen to General Vic, his suggestion is we the Philippines should get out of the way, get out of harm's way for the peaceful resolution and safety of every single Filipino. I would like to thank everyone for joining us this afternoon to Apcu's Zoom meeting, and we hope you have been enlightened by General Vic concerning all the complex issues of the US-China Cold War in South China Sea. Again, thank you everyone for joining us this afternoon, and have a good day.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, President Jeff.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, General Vic. Thank you, Mr. Ting Hong. Thank you.
Thank you, General
Ambassador Chito.
Corpus.
May payment na siya.
General Dean. Thank you, Chairman.
Nabayad na siya. Paano ka?
Thank you, Chairman Longino.
So,
thank you. It's another
thank
wonderful.
you, everyone. Yeah. Chairman?
Yes, it's another wonderful session. I learned a lot.
Yes.
Been listening to the lectures and opinions of General Corpus for quite some time, but again today is another wonderful lesson that I've learned. And thanks so much, General Corpus, for sharing your knowledge to the Filipino nation, and even to the other friendly neighbors we have in Asia and the rest of the world. I know the big powers have listened to your position and your opinions, and their experts and analysts for sure are now doing a lot of pencil pushing and rethinking of actions that they are going to do in this part of the world. Thank you so much.
You're welcome, sir.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone. we are ending this session. We will inform you of our next Zoom meeting once we have a confirmed speaker. Thank you, everyone, for coming.
Thank you, Pres.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, and good day.
Thank you. Thank you.
Ay, Brother Pet, saka si Reben, maiwan tayo.
Sige, General. Okay.
Thank you. Na-extorbo ko kayo. May nanggugulo ko nina on. Nagkagawa ng mga sulat-sulat doon sa
Ano ba yung sinasabi ni General Pase na maiwan daw tayo?
Oo, wag muna kayo umalis. May kuha na tayo. Minor details. Maski tayong tatlo na lang ni Reben.
Naka-unmute.
Brad, nandiyan pa si Reben.
Ito na po, tayong tatlo na lang, sir.
Oo, sige.
Naku, wait lang po, sir. May nag-join bigla.
Administrative lang ito.
I-remove ko na lang po.
Okay.
I-restrict ko lang din po, wait. Sir Pete,
Ayun.
ito po,
Oh,
yan
yun.
na po Wait lang sir, meron lang akong i-remove po sandali.
Austin.
Ay sir, na-remove ko na ata.
Hindi, IDSI.
Eh,
Nakapasok ang IDSI.
kaya nga po eh.
Kanina pa sila, di ba?
Oh. Kay Austin yan eh.
Wait, ilalak ko na sir
Ayun,
yan
yun,
sir,
yun.
nilak ko na sir yung meeting. Tayong
Okay,
tatlo lang
okay.
po ito.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.